Reddit people, what's the most calculated act of revenge you've ever heard of? Here's one. I always knew something was off with Sarah. She hadn't been herself lately, distant, cold. We used to talk about everything, but in the past few months, it was like she'd forgotten I existed. I kept telling myself it was just the stress from work. We all go through rough patches, right? But I couldn't ignore the gut feeling gnawing at me. One night, I heard her on the phone, her voice barely a whisper. There was laughter, soft, intimate laughter, and it wasn't meant for me. That's when I knew. The next day, I followed her. She told me she was going to visit a friend, but instead, she drove to a cottage on the outskirts of town. I sat in my car, watching as she got out and met him, some guy I didn't know, but now hated with every fiber of my being. They kissed like I didn't exist. I felt my heart shatter that day. My world crumbled, and I wanted to scream, to confront them, but something held me back. The rage was there, seething, but I wanted more than just a confrontation. I wanted them to suffer. I wanted revenge. So, I waited. I pretended everything was fine. I still held her at night, still smiled when she came home, even though it sickened me to be near her. I watched, learned her lover's habits. I followed him to the gardening store where he worked, made small talk with him. The man had no idea who I was. I asked him about plants, played the role of the friendly customer. He was happy to help, explaining which plants were dangerous, which ones had toxins that wouldn't be detected right away. I even bought a few plants that could kill slowly and painfully, without leaving a trace. He helped me with my revenge without even knowing it. The night finally came. I made Sarah a beautiful dinner, her favorite meal, candlelight, the whole romantic setup. She was surprised but happy, clearly thinking I was oblivious to her affair. We toasted to us, to our future. She smiled, completely unaware that I'd laced her food with poison. A slow-acting toxin. Perfect. Over the next few days, she started getting sick. First, it was just mild nausea, then dizziness, pain. I stayed calm, even sympathetic. When she asked to see a doctor, I told her it was probably just a virus, that she'd be fine. But I knew she wouldn't. By the third day, it was obvious something was wrong. I sat her down in the living room. She looked so weak, so scared. I know about him, I said, stroking her hair. Her eyes went wide, full of shock, fear. I've known for a while, Sarah. And now, it's too late. She gasped, her breaths coming shorter, more ragged. I watched the panic set in as she realized what was happening. I leaned in, whispering softly, "You should have been more careful with the flowers I've been planting." She started to cry, her body betraying her as the poison did its work. "Why?" she croaked, barely able to speak. I stood up, walking over to the window, looking out at the garden. "It was beautiful, my masterpiece." "Because you didn't just kill our marriage," I said, "you killed me too." But before I could savor the moment, there was a knock at the door, followed by the sound of it being kicked open. Police swarmed in, guns raised, yelling orders. "Lucas Jensen, you're under arrest." What the hell? I was stunned, frozen in place as they grabbed me, forced my hands behind my back. My mind was racing. How could they have known? How? And then I saw it. On the counter, near the fruit bowl, a small camera. Sarah, lying on the couch, barely alive, managed a weak, triumphant smile. "I always knew you were watching," she whispered. So I watched back.